Hello, I'm Mac, at least for a day, and everything's going to be okay. This is part two with my viewer interview with Clayton Parrish. Again, if you would like to be in a viewer interview, let me know in the YouTube comments. You do have to be on PlayStation in order for it to work, but talk with me about it and we'll see what we can do. All right, so Clayton is going to continue his list of ideas for improving No Man's Sky.
Yes. So where we left off in the last video, I briefly talked about we briefly talked about freighters. One of the things that I would love to see is, first of all, a better way of doing the warping animation when warping with your freighters. I feel like it's pretty boring right now. I don't like that it's just, oh, I hit the button and it just looks like the teleporter, but with the starship warping animation without the starship. Uh, but adding on to that, giving players an actual reason to use the freighter warping, uh, I think for one, freighters should have much more improvements to warping distance. And I think it would be a really good idea to remove the economy scanner and the conflict scanner from your starships. Like, make it so that those aren't a thing on starships anymore. And add those to freighters, giving us an actual reason. Because it makes more sense on the freighters because we have a crew that can communicate with or gather information about other star systems, which would give an actual explanation for why we're able to know what the economy and uh, combativeness of that star system is like.
Okay. Yeah, more information about different star systems would be cool.
Moving on into bases, I have a few simple things here: base defense and security systems, living spaces for tamed animals. But the one that I would definitely like to see the most are more industrial purposes for bases, similar to how there are we can make mining facilities for bases or farms that gather, plant or animal resources. I'd like to see more of those industrial type purposes for bases, especially if there was any way to make it possible that players could transport resources between their bases and have bases, maybe not bases interacting with each other from across star systems, but maybe between planets within the same star system.
Yeah, one idea you said there that kind of made me think of something is we've got these really cool products that we make, like the stasis device and the cryogenic chamber and stuff like that. But those are just items that we sell for money. It'd be cool if there were special base building parts that we could, build from those kind of things, like actually have a cryogenic chamber for our base and it could like do a special animation where we get in it and it freezes us and then unfreezes us and we get back out. Just a neat kind of thing like that, or a stasis device if it's some kind of time time freezing thing that would do a cool time freezing animation or something. Um, that would be really cool because right now all base building parts for the most part are just made of base materials and stuff that aren't very hard to get. But it'd be nice if they added some really cool gadgets with some aesthetic purposes for just doing some cool looking stuff that doesn't really do anything useful, but it would just be a really cool looking thing for your base that would require some of those more difficult to craft things like stasis devices and such.
Another thing that might be really useful is there's been a lot of talk in the No Man's Sky community about having the ability to customize your ships, and in doing so, you could get blueprints for specific parts by scrapping ships. I think what you could do with that is if they did add that into the game, maybe you could use those blueprints to create sort of a what do you call it? A starship manufacturing facility. Sort of
Yeah.
manufacturing your own starships and selling them out to NPCs.
Yeah, that's a great idea because obviously people have been asking for ship customization for a really long time. And I don't know if you said this, but if we could own a space station, that could be the purpose of owning a space station. Like, you have to own a space station in order to create a ship customizing machine that will let you build your own ship, which people have been asking for ages. And then, like you said, you could sell them to NPCs or maybe even have like a showroom floor that you could sell things to players as well as NPCs. You know, create a bunch of different ship designs and sell them for a price that you choose or something like that. Just something to have us really work towards. Like it would be very difficult to become able to claim a space station, and then it would also be really difficult um, to build all of this stuff that would customize ships and sell ships, but it would be a really, really long, difficult task with a big reward that would give us something to work towards over a long period of time. Um, because a lot of things in No Man's Sky, like getting a lot of money is super easy and then you don't have much to do with it. We need kind of a more of a long-term goal like that for us to achieve.
I agree. Uh, Now, I'm just going to glaze over this section I have for NPCs, mostly just because I want to get further into the next topic, but I'm just going to glaze over a few of these. I definitely would like to see them fix the NPC, the identical NPC issue that we see in space stations, where you see multiple of the same exact NPC model
Hmm.
in the space stations. I'd like to see NPCs on the planets that can give us missions and quests.
Well,
Uh,
there are, but unfortunately they're super rare. My a friend of mine showed me this really rare quest where he interacted with one of those devices that you find on the ground, one of the just broken devices, and it said that it required a special resource, and I think it was a Korvax convergence cube, and he gave the Korvax convergence cube to it, and then it spawned a Korvax NPC right next to him, and he talked to the Korvax NPC and got some kind of special reward. So there are these really rare NPC encounters, but the problem is they've made them so rare that most people, like me and you, were both unaware of it until he showed me screenshots. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen an interaction like that before. Um, that
I
they've
had
made
no
these
idea that
encounters,
was even a thing.
yeah, they've made these encounters so incredibly rare that people aren't even aware that they exist. So they need to make them more frequent and, you know, maybe add more types of them so that
Yeah, I
people
think
get
maybe
them more.
making them more frequent may not be the solution. I think just having more of those types of things in would be
Yeah.
better because it gives that, that experience that I like to see a lot in No Man's Sky, where it's been like, I've been playing this game for how long, and this is the first time I'm seeing this. I didn't know
Yeah.
this was in the game.
Yeah. And
Uh,
that does happen a lot actually. People will show pictures of creatures that others will say they've never been able to find that one of those even after hundreds of hours of playing.
I also would like to definitely see like not the travelers that you see in the space anomaly, but the travelers that you see sometimes on trading outposts or in space stations. I would like to see some more interactions with those NPCs because I feel like all we really do with them is you talk to them and you get a little interesting interaction, and then maybe you can get a location of a grave, and then once you have all the graves, you really have no reason to talk to these guys again.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the traveler NPCs specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, and I was thinking when you were saying that, I thought you were talking about NPCs in general. And one thing I just thought of was we have this desk where you get special missions from at every space station, but wouldn't it make more sense if every NPC had a possibility to give you a special quest that you could do for them and then you come back to them and complete it rather than always obviously it kind of makes sense that it's easier to program getting and turning in the missions at the same desk every time, but it would be a lot more exciting if, I mean, it would actually give us a reason to talk to NPCs. I almost never talk to NPCs now unless there's some specific reason I need to. But it would make it much more exciting finding NPC if you think that they're going to give you some kind of special quest or mission to complete on that planet and then come back and get a special reward from them.
If they
Um,
didn't want to get rid of the missions agent, a way that they could easily fix that is maybe give it a little bit more interactivity by saying, like, whenever you accept a mission from the mission agent, it, rather than just giving you the mission, takes you to, like, gives you directions to the NPC that you have to go to actually start the mission.
yeah, and in fact, there used to be a mission like that. I don't know if it's still around or not. I haven't been doing the space station missions much. I know it's not in the Nexus, but there used to be a mission called Find a Missing Life Form where you had to it had you go to an NPC at a trade platform, then that NPC would ask you for some item, and then they would tell you where the NPC you're looking for is, the missing one, and then you would go to that NPC and you would report their location because you found them then. But that was the only mission that was like that. Pretty much no other missions have you talk to. Well, I mean, we've got help a stranded life form at the Nexus now. But yeah, like you said, it would be cooler if instead of having just flavor text explaining why we're going to go kill creatures or why we're going to go do whatever mission there is, we would go to an NPC and they would have a personal story telling us why they're having us do it or whatever.
Moving on, this I'm a little bit. I'm excited about this topic because this is something that I really, really would like to see some changes in. Exocrafts. I don't really ever use exocrafts. The only
Hmm.
exocrafts that I ever find myself actually using are the Minotaur. Whenever I need to, whenever I'm on an extreme planet with an extreme storm, and I just don't feel like constantly pumping in uh, ion batteries, and the Nautilus. So I came up with some ideas to help give players reasons to actually use these assets. For one, I think the Minotaur should be changed. I don't like the fact that the Minotaur is specifically a. It's people look at it and you think, oh wow, a mech that I can get in and fight Sentinels, and then you get in it and you're like, oh, this is wildly disappointing because it's
Yeah.
not meant for fighting, it's meant for mining, and I don't like that. I think the proper exocraft that should be used specifically for mining would be the Colossus. It makes
Yeah.
more sense. So I think removing the invulnerability from the Minotaur and adding it to the Colossus is one improvement I would make, and giving the Minotaur more of a combat focused mechanics. But one thing I definitely would like to see is I came up with a few ideas to give players reasons to use the different types of exocrafts.
Oh yeah.
One of them I came up with is hurricanes. I think hurricanes would be a fantastic idea to encourage players to use the more sturdy types of exocrafts. Maybe hurricanes could occur, but rather than being like storms and just wearing away at your hazard protection faster, maybe hurricanes occur and the wind is so strong that that your character becomes, haggard, and you're like fighting against the wind, moving really slowly, and the only way to move more efficiently is to use the exocrafts that are a little bit sturdier, like the roamer
Mm.
or the colossus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Go
on
ahead.
and on the other aspect of that, to encourage players to use the lighter exocrafts, maybe adding certain areas that are covered in like mud or thick snow that are difficult to traverse. Like, again, your character gets in this area and you're moving very slowly. So you would use something like the Nomad that could just hover above this terrain, or the Pilgrim that can just cut through with its aerodynamic shape.
Yeah, that is a great idea. That is something we really need. Like I'm thinking we could have sand dune planets, which people have been asking for a long time, where you, if you try walking in it, you kind of sink down into the sand, and even if you use your jetpack, when you fall down, your feet get stuck into the sand for a while. So it makes it really difficult to move around. But the Nomad would be like the sand dune buggy that would go across there really easy. And then the Nomad is already kind of the skimmer that goes across water, although it seems like they've nerfed it so that it's way slower now. It used to be a lot faster across water, but fix that so that it's the one that's good for traversing the surface of the water. Obviously, the submarine is for underwater. And like you said, probably mud would be the tank. I forget what it's called, but it's the big one that is looks like a tank. That would probably be good for mud because it would have tread that could get through mud on swamp planets and stuff like that. Um, the motorcycle, I'm not sure what it would be good for, but I'm sure they could think of some other kind of terrain, maybe dirt or gravel. Maybe gravel would be best for the motorcycle, but yeah.
Cooking and eating. I've got a lot of things on here for cooking and eating. The big one, I would like to see a culinary guild. I feel like there's no real reason to do these fancy dishes that are in the game. So I feel like adding, maybe speaking with Chrono, or maybe adding a new hireable NPC to your base that's like a chef, and adding culinary guild where maybe at the beginning of the game you only get access to a certain amount of recipes, like really simple. Maybe they separate the recipes into tiers based on how in depth they are, how many things you have to put into it, and as you progress through the culinary guild, whenever you rank up, maybe you get a cosmetic reward, and you get access to the next tier of recipes that you can expand on and go further and keep turning these things into Chrono, or the NPC for the guild, and it'll actually give us a reason to hunt down all of these cooking materials and go further into this cooking mechanic.
Yeah, definitely. We desperately need better things for the cooking system. Because there's really almost no reason to do it other than getting nanites. People tell me you can get a lot of nanites doing the cooking. I tried doing a series on it though. I just found it incredibly annoying because if I got a lot of food in my inventory, whenever I talked to you just said his name, I already forgot it, but the
Chrono.
NPC Chrono, when you talk to Chrono in the Nexus to give him food, the problem is he randomly chooses an item out of your inventory, or rather, there's only like three options to choose from, and I usually get just like something stupid like wheat or milk rather than one of the finished products I've cooked. So they need to make it so that a better interface would be to open up your inventory menu in order to choose the food you want to select rather than having a short list of a few of the items in your inventory. Because if I'm going to cook a whole bunch of stuff and then give it to them, I need to be able to actually select the good finished products. Other than that, besides that, we also need an actual recipe system. Right now, the only way to know how to make recipes is to look them up online. You can experiment and find a recipe, but once you've discovered that recipe and you go to the catalog, I'm showing the catalog on my screen right now, there's nothing on it that tells you how to make it. There should be a recipe. Like right now, I'm looking at viscous custard. There should be a recipe on there. If you've discovered the recipe, you need to actually have it available to you in the game. And also, it needs to tell you what it does when you eat it, because I don't see any reason. I mean, obviously, you can learn what each recipe makes, but I mean, what each recipe does to you when you eat it, but it would be so much better if the food actually told you what it did and if the catalog actually told you how to make it so that you could remember how to make everything. So that's just a couple improvements that I'd like to see to the cooking system. But we are starting to run out of time. Do you have enough stuff for another video, Clayton? You-
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and we'll do a part three later. But for now, I have been Mac, and this has been Clayton Parrish. Thank you for joining us for a day. And remember, everything's going to be okay. Special thanks to my monthly supporters, Shell Owens, JSpot51, Shannon and Jeremy, Meg Payton, Renee McLeod. It's friends like you that motivate me to keep creating.